over time, but if there's any new folks that have decided to join us this morning, hopefully this will give you a little idea of kind of my perspective on things and my story and things that are important to me. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So how's FAI dealing with COVID? So, for me, this is really about providing information that our members can rely on and trust. I mean, back in mid-March, I think we were all in a situation where, there were just so many unknowns, and there continue to be unknowns. So we don't know the true impact that COVID's going to have on, our business and independent agencies in the future. I think you'd be a little naive to think that we are completely immune, despite the fact that many studies and things have shown that the agency channel usually fares pretty well during economic downturns. It certainly did in the late 2000s during the recession. And so far, if you kind of base your opinion on reports from publicly traded large brokers and stuff like that, results are much better than what I think people were originally anticipating at the beginning of this pandemic back in mid-March. And so, I know that we were obviously very concerned about the impacts that it was going to have on our members, and our members were obviously concerned. So I think that we really just felt like our role was to be a purveyor of accurate information in March, April, and May. There was just so much going on, both at the federal and state level, regarding government response, that there was just a lot of information that was inaccurate, that was being talked about and being shared. And so I felt like our role was to be that purveyor of factual information that our members could use in order to plan for the future of their business. And that's what we've continued to do. Obviously part of that was working with state regulators, the CFO and the governor specifically on 440 remote work. That was probably one of the biggest issues that we had some, I don't want to say control over, but some ability to influence here in Florida. Much of the response, came from the federal government, and we don't have a whole lot of control over that or influence. Obviously, the Big I was very involved in many of the conversations relating to PPP and CARES Act and so forth. But here in Florida, we really only had the opportunity to kind of deal with regulators here relating to licensing. And as everybody knows, we were successful in working with the CFO to have an emergency order issued that allowed remote work for 440 employees. And, that has now been extended twice as a result of the governor extending his emergency order relating to health crisis here in Florida. That's, scheduled to go through November 3rd. And we'll see where it goes from there. But really, it was about being a purveyor of good information that was factual that our members could use to plan. And then, of course, during that same time, we had a convention that we had to cancel. And we felt like, given the set of circumstances and the value that a lot of our members get from coming to convention and getting some 12 to 15 hours of continuing education during that time that we weren't going to be able to offer in that setting, that it was important for us to still provide that information to our members. And fortunately, we were able to come up with a way to do that provided that free to our members. And I think that when it was all said and done, we provided close to 7,000 hours of free continuing education to our members, which we got a tremendously positive response from folks that attended those sessions, both from the content, but also the fact that I think people appreciated that we kind of saw what was going on in the marketplace and tried to do one more thing to provide a value add and increase the value proposition for FAI members. So I was really proud of our response, and it continues. I think that the kind of hysteria that we all felt in March and April, and the unknown has subsided some. People have kind of settled into a bit of a routine, but there still remains an awful lot that is unknown. And as things continue to develop and we learn more, we'll obviously provide that information to our members the way that we have since March.
Yeah. And folks, we see some questions coming in, and we'll get to those as throughout the presentation, Kyle. And so thanks for those words of encouragement. And you see on the screen, folks, what we have on our website. You see the address there. We have a whole page that deals with a lot of the resources Kyle mentioned, and they're all in one place. So if you need them, certainly take a look at this web page, look at those resources. If you have any questions, reach out to us. But there's a lot of good information, and we're all housing it in one place. And hopefully you'll find that beneficial as you continue and we continue to deal with the coronavirus. As we switch gears a little bit, Kyle, you know, our phone continues to ring around here, emails, text messages, and every day it seems like we get a new little hiccup in the Florida property market. I know you're well versed in it over the last 16 years, but it seems like this year we're seeing a little bit more turbulence as it relates to the Florida property market. There's a lot of factors. We can go into all the weeds, but we probably won't do that today. But I know you've had some conversations with the CFO. I know you've talked to the commissioner, but just kind of, give us your vantage point from being FAIA CEO to what you're seeing and can share with our members about the Florida property market.
Sure. Yeah. As you said, I mean, having been here for as long as I have, I've seen some bad property markets. And then primarily dealt with them in the context of legislative reform, working on behalf of our members before the Florida legislature and regulatory bodies to try to make a better day for agents and their customers, trying to create a more vibrant and competitive insurance marketplace here in Florida. But this is among the worst situations that I have seen in my time here at FAIA. And what's interesting is that oftentimes you can kind of gauge the health of the marketplace based on policy count at Citizens. And, what we're seeing right now are some rather disturbing trends. For the last probably 8 years, I guess, since the legislature passed reform relating to sinkholes, and Citizens had kind of topped out at around 1.45 million policies. There's been a steady depopulation of those policies, and Citizens for the last couple of years has really remained pretty flat with a policy count around 450,000.
Yep.
What people, at least in my world, in the legislative process, they oftentimes have a mistaken view of Citizens, and that is, one, it's true that it is supposed to be the market of last resort, but oftentimes people talk about Citizens policy count in terms of catastrophic risk, and talk about, well, Citizens policy count's going up, that has something to do with natural disasters or wind risk, and that's not true. The volatility in Citizens policy count really has to do with the personal lines account. It is the ability for primarily our Florida homeowners carriers or domestic carriers that occupy a large percentage of market share, that it's their ability to write that business or not that dictates Citizens policy count. And so back in 2012, at the kind of end of the sinkhole crisis here in Florida, there were over 1 million policies there that were really there because there was no other market from a personal lines, just regular HO3 policy inland. I mean, and so that's where we're starting to see an increase in Citizens policy count now. Barry Gilway said yesterday at a board meeting, or 2 days ago at the Citizens board meeting, that they anticipated having a policy count around 600,000 by the end of the year. By most accounts, they're growing by 3,000 net new policies a week. So 12,000 net new policies a month. And that's indicative of what we're hearing from our members and from companies. And that is that underwriting guidelines have been significantly restricted. Carriers are doing exposure management. They're sending non-renewals. In some cases, carriers are canceling appointments with agents. That's their way of being able to get off large blocks of business. And so, we're hearing all those things, and it's going to take time for those to kind of manifest themselves in the marketplace, meaning that a carrier may have made an announcement that they're non-renewing a block of business, or they're not writing any new business. And then it takes time for those policies then to, expire, and the agents have to remarket those. And, over the next 12 months, there's just going to be less and less options for them in the voluntary market to write that business. And, our friends in Tri-County are all too used to this situation. But what changes during times like these is that other geographic areas of the state are impacted. And, back in 2012 with sinkholes, it was primarily Tampa Bay area, a few pockets here and there. And now, this term that no one had heard of until 6 months ago, SOLO, Seminole, Orange Lake, and Osceola counties, that used to be the place that carriers went, because that was safe. We know we can write business. We can write profitable business there. And so we have agents in those areas of the state who, frankly, have never even had to have a citizen's appointment, that unfortunately, due to market conditions and increased litigation and non-cat losses that carriers are sustaining, unfortunately, there's going to be some agents that are going to have to write business with citizens that never dreamed they would ever have to write business with citizens. So, I've had the, opportunity over the last week I sat on a panel discussion for the Broward local board last week. They had a couple company representatives there on that, and also sat on a call yesterday with American Integrity. It was kind of a second quarter financial update of the market. And in both of those meetings, there was kind of a very frank conversation that was had about the state of the marketplace, where we are and where we're headed. And, I hate to say it, but I think it has to be said. I think it's important that we continue to, tell the truth. I don't want our members to, not know what's going on. The fact is that it's going to get worse before it gets better. And the reality of the situation is, even if the Florida legislature did something really meaningful next session, so session next year is in March and April, even if the legislature did something really meaningful that had to do with litigation reform, attorney's fees, contingency risk multiplier, any of those things, another ACV on roofs is another issue that a lot of carriers are talking about right now. Even if they did that, the law won't become effective until probably July of next year. Then carriers will have to make rate and form filings as a result of that. And those then have to be approved. So you're probably talking about another 6 months until all of that rolls actually onto policy forms and you see it in rate. And then it takes a full 12 months from that to roll on. And you're still not going to have a lot of experience for carriers to be able to look and say, okay, well, this has had a meaningful impact on our claims frequency or severity. And so, I mean, we're here for a while, when you look at that timeline, we're 2 years at best before you start to see probably some relief. And that's only if the Florida legislature does something truly meaningful in the 2021 legislative session. So, I hate to be that bearer of bad news and doom and gloom, but the truth is it's the reality of the situation. And we will obviously, advocacy is something that this association is built on. It's a fundamental tenet of what we do. And we will continue to do everything in our power to, tell agents what they can do to get involved, tell agents, what they should be saying to their policyholders and customers. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's going to take. Unfortunately, I mentioned this yesterday on the call. Unfortunately, the Florida legislature is like most legislative bodies, and it's rather reactionary.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, oftentimes it takes a crisis for them to act. That's where we were 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when there was 1.5 million policies and citizens. And we're approaching that at this point. I mean, you can look at any of the publicly available data that shows Q2 results for the domestic homeowners market. And it's what some characterize as a sea of red. The entire spreadsheet showing, underwriting gains or losses and, surplus change year over year. It's all almost without exception. There's a couple that have managed to eke out some small underwriting gains, but there's not many. And the market is in a bad place right now, and it's going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately.
Yeah, one comment, Kyle, that came in. This is horrible. So yeah, unfortunately it is, but we're here. We're on the wall for our members, Kyle, and we'll keep them as informed as we can. And if you hear any intel, certainly pass it along, and we'd love to share that with those up here in Tallahassee. So don't ever forget that information is very helpful when we have these discussions. So Kyle stole a little of my thunder, but I'm in the middle of a blog about the Citizens Board of Governors meeting, and so some of those stats will be there. But Barry Gilway has certainly some alarming stats and conversation and things that he advised the board about. So yeah, those numbers don't look good. But if you need citizens, certainly get engaged with them, and we'll be happy to help there as well to get your team up and running if you need them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing that I would say that is very different today than it was 10 years ago is I think our relationship with citizens, not to disparage anyone that was there previously, but Barry Gilway is among the finest people I've ever met, and he has done an incredible job, he and his leadership team over there at Citizens. We have a fantastic relationship with them at this point. They're unbelievably responsive to issues and problems that we have that were brought to our attention by our members. And so just the working relationship between us and Citizens is so much better than it was at that time. And that's in some ways, reassuring to me that if there's going to be growth at Citizens and a heavier reliance by agents on Citizens, that they are far more understanding of the agent situation and really do try very hard to be responsive to us and to agents. So, of course, nobody wants to have that as their only option, but I would take some comfort in at least knowing how that relationship has changed over time.
Yeah, and especially with the hire of Carl Rockman and develop an agency and agency services and actually have team members out there to help agents if they need it. So, well, we're going to move along and get in more of Kyle's growth and development over the last 16 years to become the CEO of FAIA. But one challenge that he had at the very beginning of his tenure here was he had to make some decisions about staff, because certainly he ascended to the CEO rank, but there were some other folks that needed to be put in place as well, Kyle. So I guess give us a little flavor on some of the other staff changes that you've had to make some decisions on over the last few months.
Yeah, so much of it is as a result of retirements and so forth. I haven't made any changes to fire anyone or anything like that. We have
Kyle.
We have an incredible team here. But along with Jeff's exit as CEO, President CEO of FAI, Larry Thompson, our longtime CFO, who has been at the association for some 25 years, has also made the decision to retire at the end of this year. While Jeff's retirement was coincided with our fiscal year that runs September 1 to August, Larry has made the decision, and his told us for a long time, the last couple of years, told us that, hey, this is going to be my last year. And so that obviously is another very key position in the association. I mean, he has so much historical knowledge of FAI's financial position and how much it has frankly changed in his time and Jeff's time. So, yeah, I mean, that was a bit of a daunting task to take on the responsibility of needing to hire a new CFO to replace Larry. The good news is that, with the help of our executive committee, we interviewed a slate of candidates and I think found an incredibly qualified person to take that position. His name is Lance Hampton. He has years and years of experience as a CFO of another very large entity, not in the insurance space, but certainly has the day-to-day knowledge of what it takes to run an organization of our size from a financial standpoint. So Lance has joined us. He started around the beginning of August. And Larry is with us until the end of the year. So we all felt like it was very, very important from a continuity standpoint. and a smooth transition to be able to have Lance to rely on Larry and his expertise and knowledge for a period of 4 months or so. So Lance is getting up to speed, and I'm absolutely sure that he's going to be a fantastic CFO for us. And we're going to miss Larry, but Larry, decided that now's the time to have a little fun and travel with his wife and spend a little more time with the grandkids, and it's good for him. So look forward to him being able to do that. Of course, with my ascension into the role of president and CEO, that left a void as for a lobbyist, and it was equally daunting to try to find a replacement there. And it's personal to me because it's something that I have done my entire time here at FAI. I certainly was not our head lobbyist for my entire time here. When I started in 2004, I knew nothing about this business and frankly knew nothing about politics really. But had the opportunity to learn and grow under a number of people's mentorship. And I take what we do for our members at the legislative level and regulatory level very, very seriously. And so I found it difficult to try to find someone that I felt would do what our members have become accustomed to and deserve. But I think we found a really, really good person in BG Murphy. BG has years of experience in the political process, so he comes much more well equipped than I did when I came here. He worked for two CFOs. He worked for both CFO Atwater and Petronas. Left Petronas's office about 2 years ago to take a job in the private sector, and for the last 2 years has been the legislative affairs director for kind of basically the Southeast region for Sentry Insurance, a large insurance company headquartered in Wisconsin. And so he joined us at the beginning of August, and he's doing his best to get up to speed. The good news is he knows many of the issues that we deal with on a regular basis, just doesn't have the agent perspective.
Right.
And so he's done a fantastic job trying to get up to speed. He knows the political world, has a bunch of great relationships in the legislative process. And so I have no doubt that he'll be great in that role, but it's just going to take a little time. And as I've told him, and I've told members of the legislature when I talk to him, is that, I'm going to be as engaged as I need to be on the political side. Obviously I have a lot of other things that I am responsible for at this point, but we can't allow, there to be any sort of drop off or anything like that when it comes to our advocacy or legislative advocacy. And so I'll continue to be involved both on the political and government affairs side to help BG transition into his new role. But Laura's also here to be able to help. She has been the person who's kept me in line for better part of 10 years. And I know we'll continue to be that resource for BG as he grows. Of course, Dave, my co-host here this morning, you have taken on a new role here at the association. You have taken on a role of vice president, become an officer of this organization. I think that is extraordinarily well deserved. You have done some great things for our association and our members for years on the industry relations side, citizens, company stuff, and certainly our education department. And so in that role, you obviously took on one more responsibility, and that's membership, which was something that I previously, I don't want to say managed because Melissa Weaver manages it. She's
Correct.
our membership director. Yeah, but I did have some oversight over it. And now you have the opportunity to do that. So I'm excited about where we are, some of the new folks that we brought on. We also brought on, so in the last in the last maybe 6 weeks, we've had 4 new employees join us. Lance, BG, and then we had a new, sales rep, Kevin Mangan, who has joined us, who's going to be handling the North Florida territory, which I'm super excited about him joining our organization. His technical expertise, having been an agent for as long as he has, I think is something that will be a tremendous benefit to our organization. And I think will work very, very well alongside our underwriting team, our E&O department. And then Devon Richardson has also joined us in our communications department. So we had a person on our staff that made the decision to leave the association for other endeavors. And so Agatha has hired a new person in our communications department. So along with everything else that's been going on, 4 new staff members and some transition of duties and responsibilities here has certainly kept me busy, but it's all good. I mean, I'm excited about where we are and the people that we have. And I think we're well positioned to continue to be able to offer the level of advocacy that we have been known for a very long time.
Well, thanks for that, Kyle, and that update. And certainly, folks, we anticipate and planning to have a convention in 2021. You'll unfortunately get to meet many of these folks that Kyle's talking about, and maybe before then, but certainly, hopefully, at a live in-person convention. So we'll see how that all unfolds. So,
man, I hope so.
Yep. I know a lot of people on this call feel the same way. So, as we switch gears, we want to really let Kyle talk about some of his vision and some of his goals and things that he sees as the future of FAI. But we thought we'd start with this first question, Kyle. What do you think our biggest strength is here right now at FAI?
Biggest strength at FAI, I would say, I don't know that I could name just one, but certainly our staff. We have an incredible group of people here who are extremely dedicated to our mission, and that is to, help insurance agents, independent insurance agents here in Florida. And, it was seen earlier this week when, we made the decision to send 10 of our staff members over to the Panhandle to try to do some Hurricane Sally recovery and relief, to be able to make sure that, our members knew that we were there and the resources that we have available to them post catastrophe. Our staff gets it. They understand, what matters. And everybody here is extraordinarily busy with all of the day-to-day tasks that they have to accomplish. But the fact that, each of those folks, including you and other staff members, never even question whether we're going to go over there. Well, of course we're going to go. That's what we do. And, to see that dedication on a daily basis and see, you just want to work with people who care, and we have an entire staff of people who care both about our members and about their colleagues here. And so I think that that's certainly one of our biggest strengths. We do also have incredible volunteer leaders. I've been blessed to see that over my time, 16 years here at the association, how dedicated our volunteers are, and their willingness to give back to the association and give of their time and talents. And of course, that's, our board, but that's also every single person who serves on a council, task force, or committee, that they care so much about the success of this organization and the industry that they give back. But that's who we represent.
Right.
That's what has always made it so easy for me to work so hard on their behalf here in Tallahassee before the legislature, because, I know who they are. And I kind of mentioned it a little bit in my, introduction blog, is that, the dedication that independent agents have to their industry and their communities and to us as an association is just an incredible thing. And it was something that I was told about when I interviewed here, and sort of felt like it was something that's the sales pitch that a potential employer's, going to give you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sounds great. But it's the God's honest truth. And so between our staff and our membership and volunteers, it's what makes FAI unique. And it's without a doubt our biggest strength.
Yeah, you mentioned Hurricane Sally, Kyle, and 10 of us over a couple of days went over to check on our members there in the Panhandle, further west of us, certainly. And so for those that have been through it, certainly we're there if you need us. And those that hadn't gone through it yet, if you need any resources, just call upon us, and we'll be happy to share any words of wisdom and resources that we have available to you as a member of FAI. So next question, Kyle. You've had a little time to develop kind of your game plan over the last 16 years, and now you're at the helm with the president and CEO role, and certainly have some vision, have some ideas. I'm sure you've jotted down a few things. But what are some of your goals over the next several years, as how you see the association?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've gotten this question a lot, as you might imagine, over the last couple of months. And, so as I mentioned earlier, FAI has an incredibly rich tradition and long legacy of what they do for independent agents here in Florida. Founded in 1904. We've been around a while, and members have come to trust that we're going to do the right thing for them. And advocacy is one thing I've mentioned a couple times. And people oftentimes, when you hear the word advocacy, you immediately think of the legislative stuff, or the regulatory stuff, and that's part of it. It is
Right.
But there's more to advocacy than just legislative. I mean, that's a lot of the work that you have done with your time here at the association, within the industry, helping members at times of need. And so I say all of that, and that my primary goal, and vision is that we continue to be
Right.
that trusted resource. And the other part that Jeff Grady stressed so heavily in his time here was the business aspect of the association, and that for us to do all of that, we have to be financially successful. He if I heard it once, I heard it 1,000 times, is that yes, we're a nonprofit, or we don't pay taxes. Well, being a nonprofit is a tax designation, not a business strategy. Right. And that has been ingrained in me. And for us to be able to provide the advocacy and resources that our members have come to expect, that takes looking at this association as a business. How do we financially succeed to be able to provide the products and services that our members need, and the advocacy that they expect? And so, what I endeavor to do is continue to build on that long tradition and legacy that FAI has been, building over all of those years, that I am honored to be just a small part of. But then also continue to be, the business partner to our members that I want FAIA to be the business partner that independent agents in Florida simply can't do without. And that's what we will continue to do through FMS, through market access, through E&O, and all of the other products and services that we offer. We want to be that one-stop shop that, no matter what an agent needs or wants or has a question about, that we have the ability to give them the answer or the solution. And we're working on, other projects right now, a lot in the data analytics and technology space that I think will start to round out. It's always frustrating when you get calls from members who, ask you, hey, can you give me some information on this or that or the other? And a lot of times it's technology, that we don't have a real good answer. I mean, Paul and his team here in IT do a great job. They know their stuff, but there's only so far they can go.
Right.
And at the end of the day, what we ultimately end up doing is likely referring that member to some other solution. And what I would like is that for every single question, concern, or need that an agent has, we have something here that we have to be able to give them in a resource. And so to do all of that, you had up there 5 and 10 years, I want to do all of those things that we just talked about. But in order for us to be able to do that long term, that also takes us looking internally to some of our own technology and our own systems and the way that we process business and the way that we interact with members and so forth. And so, we are going about a project right now, much like every business has to and every agency has to, looking at your technology needs and how you can scale and grow in the future. And so for us to be able to do all of those things that I've mentioned, I think it's time that we kind of look internally and look at some of our processes and ways that we can start to adopt some technology that makes it more efficient for our employees to be able to do all of those things for our members. So, over the next couple of years, we're going to be going through really an entire change of our technology stack. We're going to be replacing our agency management system, our association management system, and other ancillary programs that we use on a daily basis in an effort to better serve our members and have staff that can do that in a more efficient way.
Yeah.
So that's the near term kind of very introspective look at what we're going to be doing. And then I think, 10 years, I mean, we still have tremendous opportunities, both on the technology side, data analytics, consulting services, and of course, market access with independent market solutions to have that grow. I mean, it's something that Jeff Grady cared deeply about, still works on. And, we've now expanded to 16 states total. And that program continues to grow. It's a meaningful financial driver for the association. And so, continued growth in IMS. And when you do all of those things, it's like, I didn't mention one-time membership. But when you do all of those things, when you are the trusted advocate and business partner for independent agents in the state of Florida, then membership happens.
Right. Right.
People, our members talk and agency owners talk. And, I'm unbelievably proud of the fact that, on an annual basis, we put on 125, new members a year on average. This past year, we put on more than that. And there's things changing in the agency world. When I started here, there was either, an agency or an agency that had branches. And now there are so many different shapes and forms of agencies that, from networks, clusters, alliances, aggregators, all of those things. And for us, we just have to be mindful of the way that agents are doing business, the way that they're looking at the world, and try to be responsive to those changes. What Jeff has always done very, very well is making sure that FAIA is ahead of the curve and being proactive rather than reactive. And that's what we will continue to do.
Well, out of that response, Kyle, I heard you're going to have plenty of free time. So, so if you need Kyle, certainly send him an email. So, but just kidding. But yeah, a lot of good things happening around FAI currently and in the future, and certainly Kyle's leadership will lead us in the right path. So, switching gears again a little bit more, you mentioned a few times you've been here 16 years with the association. You've earned your stripes. You certainly have gone through different levels of responsibility and management, and then, of course, senior management. And now you've attained the president and CEO role. So for those, and I know many on the call know you, they've dealt with you, they've seen you at meetings, they've been at different settings with you, but just kind of for some that don't know, the path that you took to attain this position now currently as president and CEO of FAIA.
Sure. Well, gosh, so I'll go all the way back.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Back. So when I was in college here at Florida State University, I had the opportunity to work at a law firm. I was nothing more than a runner at a law firm, and they happened to have a pretty significant lobbying practice. And it was during those 3 or 4 years when I was there that I never really cared about politics, never thought about it, but had the opportunity through working there to kind of see what happened at the Capitol, and to see that there are people that engage in that process and can make changes on behalf of their clients. And I found that to be intriguing. And so when I graduated, I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do. I went to work for my family's construction company, really more out of necessity than desire. My dad's chief financial officer had quit, and in my senior year at college, I was studying accounting and finance at Florida State, and he asked if I would come and work with him for a period of time. It was, of course, back in 2003 and 4, which was at the height of a building boom here in Florida. He was extraordinarily busy, and I made the decision to, okay, I'll go do that. But I told him, I said, I'll give you 2 years. And that was some of the most instructive time, in my professional life, because, I started to learn how to deal with, all sorts of different people. 1 minute I'm dealing with a customer who's, paying us cash, large sums to build their home for them. And the next minute I'm talking to the hourly day laborer who cleans up the job sites.
Right.
And so I always look back on that and feel like that was a time where I didn't really I didn't know that I was learning something or growing. But I think it aided me tremendously, because from a lobbying standpoint, I mean, it's all about communication. It's all about people. It's all about being able to connect with people. And I think I learned a lot in that time working for my dad and dealing with, all sorts of different people. And so, but throughout the time with my dad, I was looking for opportunities to get into the political process. And Sandy Safley, who still is a dear friend, contacted me. He was a lobbyist at Pennington, and we'd stayed in close contact. And he contacted me and said, "Hey, I think I have an opportunity that may be a good thing for you." And one thing led to another. I have no doubt that the only reason I got the job here at FAIA was on Sandy's recommendation, because I really did. I came here with little to no experience or anything on my resume that would say, "Oh yeah, this is the person that we should hire to go raise money and work campaigns." But that I thankfully got the job and never dreamed that I would be here this long. I think I'd always kind of had in my mind as a young person in the political process that I would start contract lobbying at some point. But it didn't take long working here, with the people here at FAI and for our members for me to understand what a special place this is. And of course, over time, my responsibilities grew. I started taking on more and more and more. I never would have been able to grow the way that I did without the support and mentorship of both Jeff and Scott, but also some of our members who care deeply about FAI's political involvement and really took me under their wing to introduce me to, influential members of the legislature. I was 25, I think at the time, something like that, 25, 26. And, they never hesitated to say, "Come on, Kyle, I'm going to take you to this dinner or this meeting or this lunch." And it was really something that I could never repay, the things that those folks did for me. And of course, so over time, my job duties changed. I started taking on more responsibility. And then in 2013 is when, the board approached me about the possibility of a perpetuation plan within the association. And at that time, I took over all of our government affairs, managing our annual plan of work and kind of taking care of all of our political and government affairs operations, including political contributions, political involvement, and then, of course, the work, during session with the legislature. Also kind of took on the role of membership, and that was very instructive. And then most recently, also had the opportunity to work much closer with our E&O underwriting department. And frankly, that was a selfish decision on my part about a year and a half ago. It was one of the areas of the building that I felt like I was the weakest, and I just didn't know a lot about it other than just scratching the surface of what I heard in a Monday management meeting. and so working with Amanda and her team over the last year and a half has been so helpful to me to better understand that product, because it is very meaningful to what we do here, and to be able to speak more knowledgeably about that program and product and so forth has been a tremendous help for me. So yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting journey. It's been an incredible journey that, again, I never dreamed that I would still be here after 16 years. It wasn't ever my kind of professional goal to be an association executive. I don't know too many people who say, much like the insurance business,
exactly.
Unless you're, born into a family agency, I don't know too many people who say, "Man, you know what I want to do when I grow up? I want to be an insurance agent." It's the same thing. Like I don't know too many people who say, you know what I want to be? I want to be an association executive, because it's an interesting thing. It's sort of this quasi private sector, nonprofit world. It's just different, but it has been incredibly rewarding, and it's still one of those things that I look forward to getting up every day and coming to work with you and the rest of our team members here and trying to do our absolute level best to make a better day for our members. So that's kind of been my journey.
Yep.
It's been an interesting one and aided by a lot of people along the way, including many of our members.
Well, Kyle, as you look at the landscape currently, and certainly being now the president and CEO, I mean, what there may be more than one, but what do you feel like is your biggest challenge that you may need to overcome right now to take over the leadership and the future of FAI?
I think our biggest challenge is always remaining relevant. That's really what it comes down to. It's the value proposition. It's why I talked earlier about talk about vision and what it is that you want to do. I mean, you have to remain relevant to your members, and remaining relevant means that you're constantly trying to stay ahead of the curve. And we're try to say this without sounding boastful, but I mean, FAI is on top right now. We are. I mean, we don't have any competition in the marketplace, so to speak. There are several other trade associations here in the state that represent agents, and that's not being disparaging of them. But look at FAI in any measure, and even look at us compared to every other state association that's affiliated with the Big I. We're on top, and that has been as a result of Jeff's laser focus on the value proposition. And so, what's the biggest challenge? The challenge is staying on top.
Exactly.
People say all the time, it's a lot more difficult to stay on top than it is to get to the top. Yep. I don't know that I completely subscribe to that theory. It sort of discounts what it takes to get to the top. But that is the challenge. The challenge every single day for me and for all of our team members here at FAI is to remain relevant to our members and continue to do what we have done in the past, be that trusted resource, but continue to grow and add more products, programs, and services that do make us that business partner that independent agents in the state of Florida cannot live without. I mean, the world is changing. I mean, obviously consolidation has had a huge impact on our association over the last 7 to 8 years. There are producers that may have never intended to go work for one of these large acquiring entities, right, that may be thinking about going out and starting their own shop. There may be others that work for companies or that are a producer in a small agency somewhere in some hometown that says, what, I can do this. I mean, that's what is so great about our members. They're small business owners by and large, and they want to go build a business. And so what can we do? How can we position ourselves at the association to be that resource for the man or woman who has decided to strike it out on their own and hang out their own shingle, all the way up to the publicly traded brokers? It's my job to make sure that we are equally relevant to each of those and everyone in between. And so that's the challenge. The challenge is remaining relevant and making sure that the value proposition is there.
One comment that came in, Kyle, while you were saying that, need FAI more than ever for guidance through these days ahead. And then that's that trusted resource, that trusted partner that we've become since 1904.
So I mean, look, this is real talk with our members.
Yep.
I mean, the truth is that looking back, at least in the time that I've been here, some of the most successful years as far as putting on new members, financial outcome, all of those things. Some of our most successful years are when times are troubled.
Yep.
Because, I think that there are many people that when times are good and appointments are easy to get and things are just humming along, they don't think they need us. And then all of a sudden, a change happens and a turn happens. There's a pandemic. There's licensing things that you need help with. You start to see the value of advocacy when it comes to, passing things that will right the marketplace. People start to see the value more, and so we are probably in one of those periods right now.
Right.
But it's our job to continue to be that resource, and as long as we're the first organization that people think of when they say, gosh, I really need some help with my business. I need to know how to handle this or how to handle that. That we are the organization that they think of.
Yeah. That's a great point, Kyle. And we talk about it here internally all the time. But folks, between the community that we put out, the AC every other week, and certainly blogs by several staff members, that's the way we communicate. That's the way we get that message out. And you can certainly respond to us via that communication as well. So we encourage that. We try to put out the latest and greatest information for everybody to take advantage of. So don't ever hesitate. If you have a question, have a concern, thinking, hey, I'm the only one going through this, you're probably not.
You're not.
So just let us know and we'll be glad to help. So, as we wind this session down for Friday Morning Live today, Kyle, you're a real person. You've been around here 16 years. You certainly been in a lot of settings, but most have been professional. And certainly I'm not going to get into the weeds about your personal life, but you're married, got 2 kids, have outside interests. So just give us a good thumbnail sketch of certainly some of those interests outside of FAI.
Yeah. So as you said, I'm married, have been for since 2005. So I'll be celebrating my 15th wedding anniversary later this year. I got married as an employee here at FAI, had both my children as an employee here at FAI. Many of the folks that have been here for a long time as on staff have seen my children grow as I've seen other people's children grow. That's what's so cool about this organization and the people that we work with on a daily basis. Jeff, you say this all the time. I mean, we see one another often more than we see our own families. And we've all seen each other's families grow and change and so forth. And so, yeah, I've got a 13-year-old daughter who's in 8th grade this year, and a 9-year-old son who's in 4th grade. And, obviously the job takes up a lot of time, but of course I enjoy spending time with them as much as I possibly can. And I'm a very mediocre golfer. The game is not good right now. I love it. I enjoy playing. I've got a great group of guys that I play with here in Tallahassee on a routine basis. That group, along with several others, have gone to Ireland twice in the last 6 years to play golf. Of course, like most golfers would tell you, you don't get to play as much as you would like to. And I have not been playing a lot lately, but I do. I love it. It's a damn frustrating game, but I do. I enjoy it and just don't do it all that well. But that's really about it. I mean, I'm obviously a avid football fan, especially FSU, which is harder and harder to say these days. I've spent a lot more time following FSU basketball recently than I have FSU football, and it was a darn shame that the NCAA tournament was canceled this past year, because I think that Florida State had a real opportunity to compete for a national championship that I've never been able to say that in my lifetime, being an FSU fan, talking about the basketball team. It's always been about football. So yeah, I mean, glad that college football is happening in some way, shape, or form, albeit a little different than what it has been in the past. But that's about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
folks, we're not going to get
boring.
No, you're not, Kyle. Come on. But we have a few questions. We're going to go ahead and get those to Kyle, and he'll respond directly to you off air, if you don't mind. And certainly we'll share that information to the group of those questions. So, as we had to transition since March, Kyle, we put everything on via the web and have some very successful classes coming up via webinars and webcasts. Certainly still the licensee for the National Alliance and have a wide variety of classes. So check out our website under the education tab and take a look and sign up for these upcoming classes. And then since we're bringing back Friday Morning Live on a regular basis under Kyle's new year, October the 9th, we're going to bring one of our partners, FMS partners, in and talk about e-signature, and had a great chat with them the other day about their file storage going paperless. So I know a lot of agencies strive for that, but they certainly have some resources there, and they're a partner of FAIA, and so we encourage you to tune in October the 9th. And then it was mentioned several times throughout today's broadcast that about Citizens. So we are bringing them in for an update on their systems, on some of the things that they're doing to help agents through this trying times with the Florida property market. So that's October the 23rd. So we look forward to having you back on some new shows, and we're planning November and December to round out the year. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in today for Friday Morning Live. I want to thank Kyle for sharing a lot of his thoughts and ideas of bringing the association forward into the next several years. And again, we encourage questions. We encourage you to get engaged. When we send out notices to you, if you would like to sit on a committee or volunteer or engage in some kind of conversation, certainly the blogs and the community are a way to do that. So on behalf of Kyle Ulrich, I'm Dave Newell, your host. Have a great day, a great weekend. And we are going to say, go Noles, especially the youth folks down in South Florida.
That's right.
But certainly, folks, we're here. We're here to help, engage us. And we certainly appreciate your membership and guidance with FAI. So have a great day, folks. Talk to you soon.